one of the most fun things I get to do is to interact at a venue like this in what are called conversations on compassion, where I get to invite people in the arts, the sciences, in the areas of spirituality, religion, and then just have conversations. And not only is that wonderfully enlightening for me in a selfish way, but I think it's really beneficial for so many people because it gives them, if you will, an understanding of what is beyond science perhaps, or how these other behaviors that individuals embark upon positively impact not only themselves, but the greater world around them. And for those of you who know, and I think many of you do, Sadhguru has throughout his life incorporated these values, and especially the value of service to others. And many have found, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, have found how his teachings, his example, has had a profound impact on who they are or what they have become, and for so many of those around them, around the world. So in our conversation today, and one of the things I'm always interested in is for individuals, what is it in their background that began them ultimately on their path? And if I could ask you, I think you grew up in Mysore?
Yes.
And in fact, your father was a physician.
Yes, he is.
Don't hold that against me. The interesting thing, as I understand it, is that you always had an interest in nature and, if you will, being outside. And then you met your own guru at age 11. And maybe you can tell us about sort of perhaps what was different about you compared to your three other older siblings, and this interaction at such a young age with somebody who ultimately had, I think, a huge impact on your life. That was a short question, wasn't it?
I must say this, that till I was 19 years of age, I was so taciturn that I barely spoke. Because at the age of 3 or 4 years of age, I suddenly realized I do not know anything. I did not know anything at all. So when you know nothing, what do you say? My whole time and life went paying attention to all kinds of things, just anything. If you give me a glass of water, I could simply sit there staring at it for hours on end. If I sit up in the night, I would be just staring at the darkness for the whole night. My education was like this. If I opened a textbook, I would find a small, tiny little dot on the page that would keep me engaged for hours on end. I would be like this with the textbook for 2 hours, 3 hours, without reading a single word.
I do that now.
I mean, I didn't look here or there, just here. Just the tiny little dot kept me so engaged. So, if you really look at it even now, in many ways, we know how to use everything in the universe, but we don't know what it is. With all this scientific exploration, we still do not know a single atom in its entirety. We know different components of it. We know how to fuse it, how to break it, how to use it, but we do not know what it is. If somebody gets to know what it is, he will know who he is and he will know what everything is, because this is the nature of the universe. If you know an atom, you will know the cosmos. So, that aspect of the question where you're talking about my relationship with my siblings, well, it was playful and there, but I was never really there. Because what happened when I was 3, 4 months of age, I still remember. My memory was such that either I never was a child, or I never grew up. It's for you to conclude. But when I was 5, 6 years of age, I was thinking about the same way. Maybe today the accumulated knowledge has increased, but the fundamental way of thought has not in any way better or worse, it's just about the same. So somewhere, I never was a child and this manifested itself in so many ways. Though I was the youngest in the family, my mother, unknowingly, she would almost address me like I'm her elder brother. I'm saying when I was 8, 9, 10 years of age. And nobody could ever cuddle me, fondle me, take them on my lap. Such things never happened to me. And I never felt the need either. So, I think I never grew up or I never was a child.
Maybe you can tell us, though, about the meeting, the initial meeting or the interaction with your own guru who taught you
He
yoga practice.
he was not my guru. He was… in India there's a word called Guru Bhai. That means there's a… among the disciples there's a certain brotherhood. So he kind of reminded me of certain things, and anyway, I was a super skeptical about everything. And I got into this for all the wrong reasons. I think I should I did not go in pursuit of spiritual process or some other higher pursuit. This is an ancestral home where once a year in the summer vacations we all arrive. About 36 of us, all cousin brothers and sisters, and it's one rollicking scene. For the boys, one of the sport is in the backyard, we have a well, which is about 8 feet in diameter and 150 feet in depth. Summers, usually the water is somewhere around 60, 70 feet down. So one of the sport is to jump into the well and climb up. When you jump, you must jump proper, otherwise your brain will become a smear on the wall. To come up, there is no foothold, there's no ladder or anything, you just hold the rock and climb up. And it's tough, because we were built like monkeys. We did come up. One day, we were doing this. Today I realize it's a dangerous sport. And a man who was over 70 years of age was standing there and watching us. Without a word, he went and jumped into the well. I thought he's done. But he came up faster than me. I didn't like it. So I asked him how. He said, "Come and do yoga." I followed him like a puppy. And he taught me some simple things. I thought this will make me physically super. And I went. Next 12, 13 years, without a single day's break, it happened for me. And I never ever imagined that this would lead me to another dimension of life altogether. So what I'm trying to say is, the nature of this existence is such, even for the wrong reasons, if you do the right thing, it bears a result. The important thing is to do the right thing.
So does that mean we should build a well and…
Throw all these people one by one.
So it's interesting, though, that ultimately, though, you ended up going to university and studying English literature.
Went to the university.
You didn't study.
I know I'm in a university, I shouldn't be speaking like this, but first of all, when I finished my high school, I decided not to pursue my education further, which could be quite common in America that people can choose. But in India, those times, discontinuing education is considered a suicide. It's finished, because everybody is working to become a doctor. If he cannot get the medical seat, he'll become an engineer. This is a format, set. So my father being a physician, obviously, I'm supposed to become a physician. There's no question about that. So at the age of little over 16, when I finished my high school, I said, I'm not going to the university, I want to educate myself. Family went into a tizzy. So this 1 year, I just went to the Mysore University library and spent time reading all kinds of things. From Homer to Thomas More and all kinds of things. Philosophy to popular mechanics, poetry, history, geography, just about anything, every day. This is important for me because at that time it was very important. I was so physically active. I was eating 10 times what I eat today. And always I was hungry, eternally hungry. And this 1 year, I went without lunch, which was a significant achievement for me at that time. I would eat a big breakfast in the morning and go there at 8:30 when the library opens and stay there till 8 in the evening, till it closes and throw me out. I just read all kinds of things, nothing in particular. Then once again, when the next academic year came and there was drama in the family and, mother's tears and stuff, so I went to the university. And then I found, with all due respect to the teachers, they were just dictating notes all the time. And everybody was writing down, making a whole lot of noise. Those fountain pens, kara kara kara, it was making a noise. I didn't like it. I said, what is the point of this notes taking? If you give it to us, we will photocopy it. We don't have to come, you don't have to come. So I made a deal with all the teachers that I don't have to come to the class because I have a million questions floating around me. I'm always living in a cloud of questions. Million questions all the time. I have questions about everything in the universe. And they don't have answers, they have notes. So I went and planted myself in the university garden outside. That is when I realized certain things about human beings. When I sat in the garden, people started coming to me one by one. Initially about their educational problems and money problems and boyfriend-girlfriend problems, family problems, all kinds. I just found out, just continuous stream of people, this whole 3 years, I listened to thousands of people's problems. I realized everybody has a problem. I was the only freako who did not have a problem. It is just that I never saw anything as a problem with me, but everybody had some problem. So I gave my own wacky solutions to them at that time. But this kind of really got me thinking, why is it that everybody has a problem? And it made me see that just about any situation is a problem. Wherever you place them, they have a problem. This is an attitude a whole lot of human beings have taken, really. You place them anywhere, they have a problem. So, this kind of really got me thinking, what is this?
We were talking earlier, and you'd made a comment. We were talking about people and kids, and it was every child's given a definition of what's wrong with them, or versus everyone's unique and special, if you will. And maybe that was the lack of recognition of that reality, perhaps.
Yes, human beings are not coming from a Toyota assembly unit, okay? Each human being is unique, the way they are. It is not necessary to label everybody who is not like you as a problem. Actually, if everybody is a problem, you have a certain kind of sickness, isn't it? Today, we're just branding children at an early age that they are this A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, something. Every human being is a unique possibility. What I can do, you cannot do. What you can do, I cannot do. This is how it is, and that's why it's beautiful. I want you to just imagine a world where everybody was just like you. Can you live in that damn place?
That would really be exciting.
So the problems that people have with others is just this: why are you not like me? If they were like you, oh, you could… in your home, if there was one more person just like you, could you live there? Then tell me sincerely. It would be impossible, isn't it? But we can't appreciate that they're different. We have to label them as a problem. It's not necessary. All of us have come with different kind of capabilities and possibilities on the outside only. When it comes to our physicality and our psychological condition, we are all different. But if we take the privilege of singing a little deeper into this, there is a fantastic unity. If you cannot enjoy the uniqueness, you will not aspire for the unity either. People or societies are working towards sameness. Sameness is terrible, believe me. If all of us are same, we will want to commit suicide in this world because it's not worth living. If every one of us are just same, how will you live? Whom will you marry? If everybody is same. Fortunately, they're all different. There's no one like the other anywhere. And this is the beauty of creation. If we cannot even appreciate and accept such a fundamental nature of the existence, this is because we don't have a mind, we have a factory in our head. We want to turn out something.
One of the challenges, I think, and I think you addressed this in one of your many books, but is labeling good and bad and just the labeling itself.
See, the moment you identify as something as good and something as bad, you have divided the world. You divide the world and then try to unify it. Why? I want to ask you a simple question, all of you, sincerely. You don't have to say anything within yourself, you answer this. Is there anybody here who's 24 hours good or 24 hours bad?
In a lifetime.
In a lifetime, I'm saying.
Cumulatively.
You're going up and down, it's okay.
This is an engineer here. So he's trying to quantify everything.
One moment you're wonderful, another moment you're nasty, another moment you're beautiful, another moment you're ugly. It's fine. It is just that if you see that the nature of your responses right now are in a compulsive state of reaction to the outside, and instead of being a compulsive reaction, it becomes a conscious response, then everything will happen the way you want it. If everything about you happens the way you want it, would you keep yourself pleasant or unpleasant? If your body and mind happen just the way you want it, would you keep yourself blissful or miserable? Hello, it's a question. Huh? What is your choice for yourself? I'm not asking what is your choice for a neighbor, that may be debatable. What is the choice for yourself? Definitely highest level of pleasantness, isn't it? If you are in a higher state of pleasantness right now, you're really blissful. You're sitting very joyfully here, somebody stepped on your foot. You're going to just get up and punch him in the face? No, you're perfectly okay at that time, isn't it? When you're unhappy, frustrated, miserable, somebody as much as passes by you, you want to claw them. I want you to understand the external unpleasantness is just an expression of the internal unpleasantness. If this is feeling wonderful, why would you do nasty things anyway? You wouldn't. It's 100% insurance, believe me.
When you were, was it 25, and we were talking about motorcycles, and in my case, motor scooters earlier, I was saying in homage to Guruji, I rode my Vespa today over here. So, but we were talking about the fact that he rode all through India on an old Vespa, a 60s Vespa. But
I started riding when I was 9, 10 years of age. That was Vespa, but later on I graduated to something bigger.
I haven't graduated yet. I haven't graduated. My son's waiting to graduate to his Vespa experience of it. But an event happened when you were 25, which you write about, is it Chamandi Hill? And how you were there and had an experience. Maybe you can share that with us. And it changed things, how you saw the world.
Actually, many things happened before this. It's just that I was too arrogant to see it. I had to be bombed to see it. I was not sensitive enough to see anything small. Many small things happened. When I look back now, it was all there. But I was such a super smart guy, okay? If I accepted these things are happening, I had to accept that I've been stupid all the time. So I was not willing to give up the mantle of being a smart young man and see that you've been a stupid fool, not realizing fundamentals of the nature of your existence. So I had to be really bombed out for me to come to terms with it. So you were talking about the bombed out situation. So it happened, I was into business by then. And very successful for those times. Nobody expected me to be that successful in such a short span of time. And I'm already into half a dozen commercial activities and all of them are flourishing. Of course, I'm doing a whole lot of circus. My schedule was like morning 5:30 to 11 in the night every day. I'm on, doing variety of things. But when everything that you do is working and successful, slowly you begin to think the planets are not going around the sun, they're actually doing their rounds around you. So I'm in such a state of absolute certainty about everything. You're young, everything is working, people around you are clapping their hands. This is it. So one afternoon, I had nothing much to do between two business meetings. And this is a kind of a culture, a tradition in my soul that if whatever we want to do, if you want to camp, we go and camp on Chamandi Hill. You want to trek, it's Chamandi Hill. You want to have a party, Chamandi Hill. You fall in love, it's Chamandi Hill. If you fall out, you have to go to Chamandi Hill. If you have nothing to do, you go to Chamandi Hill. So, this is a place I test my motorcycles, this is a place I meditate, this is a place you meet people, all kinds of things. So I rode up and this was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I went and sat on I'm very familiar with the whole hill. I sat on a particular rock. My eyes were still open, I did not even close my eyes. Suddenly I did not know which is me and which is not me. Till that moment I knew this is me, that is somebody else. I have no issue with that somebody, but this is me, that's somebody. That's a world of distance. This is me and that is somebody is a world of distance. So, I was sitting there, the very air that I breathe, the atmosphere, the rock, everything had become me. What is me had just exploded all over the place. I thought this insanity lasted for about 5–10 minutes, but when I came back to my normal senses, about 4.5 hours had passed I'm sitting right there, fully conscious, eyes open. Sun has set. For the first time in my adult life, tears. Me and tears were impossible. I was like this. I remember when I was 8 years of age, something happened and tears came. I was at school. I made up my mind, never again in my life another teardrop is ever going to come out of my eyes, and I kept it up till I was 25. And here I am, my shirt is wet. To that extent, 4.5 hours tears have been running, and I never realized it's 4.5 hours, I thought it's just about 10 minutes. I've always been peaceful and happy, I'm young, successful, and everything is doing great. But every cell in my body is opening up like a flower, and I'm dripping with ecstasy. When I shake my head and ask my skeptical mind, what's happening to me? The only thing my mind could say was, you may be going off your rocker. I speak to the closest of my friends, something happening to me. The only questions that I got from them was, what did you drink? Did you pop something? This is all. What I'm trying to say is there was no context anywhere for me. I did not grow up in any spiritual traditions, I had not heard of any such thing, I was too arrogant to go anywhere, to be exposed to anything. I was busy with my own thing, my own wild ways of doing things. Here I am, something totally extraordinarily different happening to me. The next time that it happened is significant because there were people around me. I went and sat at the dinner table with my family. I actually thought it's 2 minutes. About 7 hours had passed. I'm right there, eyes open, fully conscious, just time. It doesn't make logical sense. I don't expect you to, either understand or believe these kind of things. It's just that time would just flip. Once I sat down, I thought it's about 25–30 minutes. When I opened my eyes, a big crowd had gathered, garlands all over me, people trying to pull my feet, and somebody wants to know about his business, somebody wants to know when his daughters will get married. I said, what? Where did you all come from? They said, you've been sitting here for 13 days. I thought, this is crazy. And I tried to open my legs, my knees were stuck. Then I knew time has passed. I didn't know, but my body is recording time. I just could open my knees, they had to bring hot water and massage me, and it took me almost an hour and a half to get my knees moving. Then I had to leave the place to avoid the attention, and by then, in about 6 weeks' time, my gait changed without any effort, the way I walk. My voice changed, the shape of my eyes changed. People around me could see something fundamental was changing within me. What happened within me I can never articulate. Simply lifetimes of memory descended on me with such weight, kind of it left me, to come to terms with that. Suddenly everything around me and everybody that I knew for a lifetime looked like absolute strangers. And it is not… I cannot say it was difficult, definitely it was daunting. It was huge. So my skeptical mind kicked in and said, this can't be true, because if I accept this is true, I have been an utter idiot all my life. I don't like that. So I traveled. Next year and a half, I just traveled everything that came in my memory just to ascertain if it is true. Every one of those places that I saw were 100% the way I had seen in my mind. And this took me to various places. And since then, what's happened within me is more fairy tale-ish than a fairy tale. I don't expect anybody to believe such things, because I do not believe such things. It is impossible to even articulate, but I would say even what's happening around me is too fairy tale-ish. People around me see this on a daily basis. It's quite ridiculous if you look at it, if you analyze it logically, it's quite ridiculous. But if you elevate yourself and look down, it is such a fantastic design. It is, I'm saying this not just by looking at the world around me. What we're just referring to as creation is such a fantastic, coordinated design. It's unbelievable. No human being can logically ever arrive at this and say, okay, I gotten it. It's too much. At the same time, everything is so cohesive and so fantastic. When you see it, even for a moment if you see it, there is no way you can ever remain the same person. So since then my life has been just to make devices through which somehow you rub off this experience on people, even if it's for a moment. I can tell you millions of people today are in such a state, if they just as much as close their eyes, tears of ecstasy will dribble down. They do not know the ultimate, but they're near. Just the fragrance of the ultimate just breaks them up, dissolves them. This is something that must happen to every human being. Before we fall dead, this is a goal that all of you must set. Whether before you fall dead, whether you become a billionaire or not, I do not know. That's subject to many things. Whether you climb Mount Everest or not, I do not know whether you have the legs or the lungs for that. Whether you're going to run 100 meters in 7 seconds or not, I do not know. But before you fall dead, at least you must know this piece of life in its entirety. This is important and important, because if you pass this life without knowing the nature of what this is, in my opinion, it's a wasted life. It doesn't matter what you might have done, what achievements you might have done in the world. If you leave this place without knowing this piece of life in its entirety, it's a wasted life, because what this is bigger than anything that we can ever think of doing in this world. So,
For many people, perhaps in this room and elsewhere, what you just described seems very far out of reach. And we were talking about…
I would like to correct that. I know that's a normal thing. I want you to understand this, all of you. See, when it comes to the outside world, we are all differently capable. What you can do, I cannot do. What I can do, you cannot do. That's a fact. And that's how it will always be, and it's wonderful it's that way. Otherwise, all of us would be doing the same damn thing. But once you look at your interiority, there is no human being here who is better equipped than the other. In your physicality, you may be better equipped than the other. In your psychological space, you may be better equipped than the other. In your interiority, you are neither worse nor better than anybody else. I'm not any better than any one of you or anybody in this world, for that matter, internally. In your interiority, all of us are equally capable. This is not something which depends on your competence. This only simply depends on your intention and willingness. This is not a question of competence at all. So it is never ever out of reach. It is just that we're looking in a different direction altogether. This happened some time ago. Someone came looking for the Isha Yoga Center in southern India. They came to a local village and asked the boy there, "How far is Isha Yoga Center?" He said, 24,996 miles. I said, "That far?" He said, "Yes, the way you're going. If you turn around, it's 4 miles." So it's not out of reach, I'm saying.
Well, perhaps though, to further your analogy, many people are heading down the path of 24,900.
Wrong direction, that's all.
Exactly. And so the question is, as an example, do individuals need a guru to turn around? Or what is it that has not manifested itself within them to turn in the right direction?
I know guru is a 4-letter word. And there's a whole lot of resistance to that. But if you're driving in a terrain that you're not familiar with, are you sensible enough to turn on your GPS? Or you do your own circuit?
If you're a man, you usually hold back as long as possible.
So that's what. Don't be a man or a woman, just be a piece of life, then it'll be very easy. It'll be very easy, because you're just a piece of life. Other things are assumed in so many different ways. Now, a guru means just a live road map. Do not… road map is to be walked upon, not to be elevated there and worshipped. Do you understand? A guru is just a live road map. You know, GPS means guru positioning.
Speaking of gurus, so one of the things that has been a central theme, it seems like, though, of your connection to others is the fact that that connection, though, involves service to others. And it seems as though this is a message of many individuals who, I don't know if you want to use the word guru or other terminology, of people who others look to as a GPS, but it seems as though there is always a centrality of a recognition of our oneness, and from that, a recognition that our life is one of service.
If there's a certain contradiction in the question, in the sense, if there is oneness, where is the question of service? Now, I'm asking all of you, if you get to do something for your children, do you feel that you've done a great service? Do you? No. It's a privilege that you have the opportunity to do this. But if you happen to do something for that urchin who is on the street, who is helpless, suddenly it becomes service. Or in other words, when your heart is bereft of love, you can do service. If you have love in your heart, you can never do enough in this life. Two hands are not enough. This is the experience of every human being, whether you are in love with one person or whatever. Even if you're in love with one person, when you're really in love with one person, these two hands are not enough. How much ever you do, it's not enough, isn't it? When there is no love, you keep accounts of all the things that you do, and it's a service. And if you do a lot of service, you will create such an unrealistic expectation about people that invariably it will lead to frustration. Activity, if you really see, suppose your little finger is rotting up, if you attend to this, is this service? If you have experienced the oneness of the existence, there would be no such thing as service. It would be just expending yourself to do whatever you can do is a natural process. In our lives, if we do not do what we cannot do, that's not an issue. But if we do not do what we can do, we are a disastrous life. Whatever we can do must happen. And we as a generation of people are in a unique space for the first time, for the very first time in the history of humanity. Even 25 years ago, this would not be possible. For the very first time, we have the necessary resource, capability and technology to address every human problem on the planet. The only thing that is missing is inclusiveness in the way we are experiencing ourselves. If there is a more inclusive experience of yourself and the rest, every other life on this planet, We are capable of offering solutions to everything for the first time in the history of humanity. The question is, are we going to just sit on the threshold and die, or are we going to cross it? This is the big question. I want to see that we, as a generation of people, do not become a vain generation, that we will do things that we can do. What we cannot do, it's fine.
In some ways, this brings up, though, the issue of, as has been quoted, 85 people have more resources in terms of financial capability than 3.5 billion people, which is extraordinary. And certainly in the United States, we see this ever widening divergence between the haves and the have-nots. And while I think we would all agree that within ourselves we have the capability to change, or the potential, but why don't we have that, or why does not so many people seemingly have this intent? In fact, as we were discussing, sometimes having more makes individuals want more, not to give more.
See, whatever 2 to 5% of the population holding over 80% of the world's wealth, that's what it is. I don't know if that statistic is perfect, but somewhere near that. One thing is, we can see it as a great problem, but I see it as a great possibility. Now you have to change only 2% of the population to transform the world.
Unfortunately, that 2% never shows up at meetings like this.
They need not, because they don't show up. Because we have developed this in the world right from the time of Marx, Karl Marx I'm talking about. I'm not supposed to talk about him in the valley, but I'm talking about him. He might have known a lot about economics, but he doesn't know much about human nature. He predicted that the richest countries in the world will take to communism. Just the reverse happened. Wherever the poorest populations are there, they are the ones who fly the red flag even today. Yes? So, poorest talking about communism means those who have nothing to share want to share. Those who have something to share become cautious about this whole thing, naturally. If I have a lot and I say, I want to share it with you, who will suspect me? I got nothing and I'm talking about sharing. This is dangerous policy. So, we need to change the equation. It is not for those who do not have to talk about sharing, because what little they have, they're not willing to share. They're expecting somebody else who have a lot to share. What little they have, they cannot share. So, the transformation, to bring about a transformation in the world, we are in a better place than ever before because the wealth is accumulated in 5% of the population. The power has accumulated in the hands of 25 to 30 people in the world. If you transform these 25, 30 people, the world will change. That doesn't look like an impossible thing. But if you tell me you're going to make 7.2 billion people meditate tomorrow morning, I will say that's a hopeless goal. But we want to make 2% of the world to meditate and experience life in a larger way than the way they're experiencing right now. It is for sure a possibility, isn't it?
What does Sarah Palin say? Good luck with that one. Yes, I certainly appreciate that example, but if we were compared it to a nut, the have-nots have a very thin shell sometimes and are more open to have their shell cracked because they have nothing to lose, while the perception is among these people, I would suggest to you, they have an extraordinarily thick shell, and sometimes even an atom bomb doesn't seem able to crack that shell. So while that may take up 2% of the nuts, and I use that term both literally and figuratively.
I must tell you this. I have had the, the opportunity and the privilege to be among those 2% of the people in the economic forums and various other, business situations. And what I found is, at least 90%, 80% of them, let me be critical, 80% of them are fantastic human beings. It is just that there is a structure to climb. And suddenly asking them to break the structure is not practical and is not going to work. There may be about 15% or maximum 20% of the people are super arrogant about what they have accumulated. But the rest of them, I have always found it's a pleasure to talk to them because they're brilliant people. They're not successful for nothing. They're brilliant people, and believe me, it is not love, it is not compassion, it's not other things which is going to change this world, it's just sense. We just have to have sensible human beings. Sense is what needs to be kindled. If you're sensible, you understand the only way that all of us can live well, the only way we can exist in a certain way on this planet is by doing certain things. This sense is easy to bring into people who have a certain level of intelligence naturally, and they have exercised this intelligence to accumulate, because that is how we have structured the society. Everybody is trying to accumulate, but now we're talking against people who have managed to do it. We have not created a social structure where it's of a different nature. The social structure right from the school is how to be better than the guy who's standing next to you. So those who are successful, we should not resent that ever. It's very important. It is important the success is acknowledged, it is just that we want to make success more universal, not so narrow. There is a saying in the African lore, when the lion feeds, everybody gets to eat, because he doesn't eat everything, okay? He eats select parts, rest others eat anyway. So similarly, this whole economic engine that we have created is of a certain kind, where human consciousness is not shaping the commerce. Commerce is shaping the human consciousness. This is a topsy-turvy way of creating the world. We are bound to pay a huge price for this. It is like if we succeed, we will fail. That's our situation. There's a proverb in India about a classic situation like this, where a man is sitting on the wrong end of the branch and cutting the branch. When he succeeds, he will fail. That is the kind of economic model that we have created. If it really succeeds, if all the 7 billion people become super successful, that means end of the world. Yes. So now, we have to have the courage that we have come this far, we have to have the courage to dismantle something that is successful and remodel this. But we will wait for it to fail and then remodel it, which is a silly way of doing things. We must have the courage to change the model of how we have constructed this world when it's humming with success. Do we have the wisdom and the courage and the consciousness to do this? That's a question. But for that to happen, we don't have to change 7 billion people on the planet. If we change the consciousness and the mindset of 100 people on the planet, it can happen.
Easily.
I'm not saying it's easy or not. It is a possibility. Between the possibility and the reality, there is always a distance to walk. Do we have the commitment and the courage to walk the distance? That's all the question is.
Well, I think that begs the question, who's doing the walking? I mean, they're there, we're here, but it's getting…
Now, I want to tell you a successful story of this. This about 11 years ago, a few responsible people in India came to one of our programs in the center. Then they saw the projects and the works and whatever we were doing, and then they said, Sadhguru, this is great, but what about the nation? I said, see, I don't have to go and do everything in the nation, that's not practical. But we can do this. I have a list of 2,000 people who can make a difference for this country. They're in different levels of leadership. I'm not talking about Prime Minister, Chief Minister, they come and go in 5 years. But there is another set of leadership which stays there for 25 to 30 years in position. If you transform these 2,000 people, you will see the country will change. They said, 2,000 people, well, I can get all of them, he said. I said, get them. Just get them to me for 4 days, well, in batches. In 4 years or 5 years, they said they will do it. Now it's almost 11 years, we have touched about 45 to 46% of them. And quietly they're transforming the country, no question about it. There is no fireworks happening, but transformation is like this. When the flower blossoms, there is no band being beaten. It just happens quietly, and it is for sure happening, believe me. I'm hands-on in touch with these people in many different levels. Have they changed everything? No. I'm saying if 10% of the way they think and feel about everybody around them changes, there is a huge change, and they are definitely doing it. So these are business leaders, bureaucratic leaders, various people at different strata. They hold responsible positions for 25 to 30 years in the life of that nation, and that's making a big difference.
That may be true in the context of that example, but again, getting back to the 85 people who are not bound to a country, a tradition, or a connection perhaps to any particular philosophy. And I think, as we've seen in this country, and it has been a reality shown by economists, this idea of creating situations where the wealthy, the extremely wealthy, are able to make 10, 20, 30, 40% on their money every year, fundamentally because they have access that no one else has, and allows them to accumulate more and continue this separation. And then we talk about trickle-down economics, which there's not one example where that has ever worked. And it's like the example so far, and again, I'm not against transformation, I'm just talking about at least the reality that I've seen, where we have very seldom, if ever, seen despots, dictators, or people in high levels of power voluntarily give up that power.
I'm not at all. This is the whole thing. See, when it is spoken from outside, they feel threatened and they will only tighten their fortresses. That's why I brought in the example of Marx. He thought the rich will do it, but the poor want it, and it never worked. It's a great idea, but gone bad, because you're trying to work it from the wrong end. If Marx had devices to transform the consciousness of the wealthy, and then he talked about communism, that would have been the most fantastic thing, okay? But now you're going on the street and those who have nothing are talking about sharing, now it becomes ugly. Now, whatever these 85 people that we're talking about, get me 10 of them for just one weekend. I will see that they transform the remaining 75. I'm not somebody who lives in some dream state. I'm very much grounded. I know this may look very… Looking at the world, the realities of the world, I understand very much where you're coming from. It's not that I have not faced that situation. Every day I am against a wall, okay? But a wall is not an impossible thing. A wall need not be broken. You can always have the skill to climb across, or you can make the other guy climb across.
I totally agree with you. Let me give you an interesting example. I have frequently been asked to speak at Aspen, and typically it's associated with having an event with affluent people. And sometimes in those situations, I feel like somebody in the zoo, they brought this particular animal out to look because that's a favorite animal that week. And And so, I got invited to an event following a talk at an individual's house. And I would suggest to you that this home, which was only 30,000 square feet, probably was worth a significant amount of money in that area. And the gentleman who was hosting it was in his 80s, and he was a survivor of the Nazis as a teenager and had become an extraordinarily successful businessman. And when you walk into his home, there is probably a painting that's 12 feet high of him, standing with his skis with the mountain behind him. And I'm sure that there's no ego involved there. And then he proceeds to have a conversation with me, and I'm not quite sure because I wasn't particularly important. But he has a conversation with me, and in the conversation he points to his watch. He says, "See this watch? That cost $1 million." So he says, "There's only 10 in the world." He says, "I can show you my garage. It's a 10-car garage. There's $10 million in cars."
See, a boy who escaped the concentration camp, he's bound to have these things. You should excuse him for those things.
Oh, no, but here, let me tell you the rest of the story. And I'll go through this very quickly, and I appreciate your comment. So, as part of this conversation he's having with me, he says, "You know, in my entire life, I've never felt loved or have been able to give love." Which is horrible, right? Here this man who nominally has everything has nothing. So I talking to him, and it turns out he's divorced and he has children who are there actually. And after this conversation for a while, I say to him, "If you meet with me for 1 hour a day for the next 10 days, I will change your entire outlook on life and you will have love. I guarantee it," just like the Men's Warehouse guy, right? Okay. So do you know his first question is? How much will it cost? So I say this man's worth around $1 billion. I say it'll cost you $100,000 an hour, but I guarantee it. He looks at me for a little bit. He says, "How about 50?" Okay, so then his daughter overhears this conversation. And she says, "Papa, you should do it." She goes, "In fact," this is his daughter. She said, "I would give up my entire inheritance to see you happy. Because I've never seen you happy in my entire life." Do you know what his response is? "You don't understand the value of money." And that's how our conversation ended.
This is…
I'm not sure if I could have done it in 10 hours.
No, I could have done it for free.
And for any of you out there, I will do it, I'll try.
We need to come to terms with this. Today, all of you are here in the United States of America, enjoying the comforts that you're enjoying, with a lot of complaints, of course. Not understanding, at least materially, you are living in the best possible space that you can live in, okay? And this has all happened because you chose a certain model of economic policy. This policy of capitalism was a sensible thing to choose when you only thought of your nationalistic way of existence, when you saw the rest of the world as a source for your whatever. That system will not work in future. It may work for another 25 years. After that, it will not work. We have to rejig this whole thing. But first of all, you must decide whether you want a market economy like this or you want socialism or communism. You must decide. If you go for market economy, some people will race ahead. If you're going to resent them, then you must go for communism. If you go for communism, some people will tell you what to eat, what to wear, where to sit, where not to sit. If that's okay with you, it's fine. I'm saying you cannot choose to go in this direction and long to go in this direction. Every system will have its negativities, but I'm saying right now, because we're talking about transforming the world by transforming an individual human being, I think it's a tremendous possibility right now that the wealth is concentrated in a few individuals' hands. If you transform them, every human being is willing to transform if you approach him properly. For a man who values money so much, whoever, the person that you're talking about, because he's come up, you can understand the guy, a young boy who escaped concentration camp and who came to a new place, in the really a new world literally, and built his life. He thinks in a certain way. He's added up from pennies to $1 billion, okay? From 1 penny, 2 penny, he's come to $1 billion, so that's all he thinks. You shouldn't have talked money to him, if you ask me. You should have offered it to him. If you spend 1 hour with me, I'll give you $100,000. This is my deal. If you bring these 85…
This is a
No,
treatment.
no, if you bring these 85 people to me, I will give them $100,000 each. They have to spend a weekend with me, willingly.
I'll spend a weekend for $100,000.
You don't have the money. I'm
Geez,
saying you have…
everybody, let's all spend a weekend.
You have to do it the way it works. We are living in this world, we have to do it the way it works in this world. People come to me always, even in the foundation, we are a little over 3,600 full-time volunteers and over 3 million part-time volunteers.
That's amazing.
Complaints and complaints and complaints, every day the number of complaints that I handle, it would kill you, okay? So people come to me and say, Sadhguru, I can't bear with this person, I can't work with this person. I tell them, see, this is the kind of people we have on this planet. If you want to work with ideal people, go to heaven today, leave today. If you want to do some work in this world, these are the people.
Actually, perhaps on that note, maybe we should open it up to some questions. And there are microphones that are placed.
Difficult questions for him, nice questions for me.
No, you can ask me any question.
So my question is actually on Bharat, since the government there is going to be changing pretty soon. And I wanted to find out, Hinduism concentrates a lot about inner transformation, but I see a lot of lack of, a social consciousness and service, or as you term, going out and having a sense that, this is my country. What do you see needs change in India?
Why do you think it's lacking?
Sorry?
Why do you think it's lacking?
I think because from early on, from ages…
No, not… why do you come to this conclusion that it's lacking?
I see it.
No, it's not true. You were looking at it from you're trying to put a template, a Western template on India, which we're very proud that we are like a cosmic chaos. You understand? We feel homesick if there's too much order. Do not misunderstand that as lack of, passion for what it is. There's enormous passion. You should see, you just see, there is no other nation where such a large democratic exercise happens the way it happens in India. No other country on the planet can fulfill that, believe me. You should see how it happens. Even the poorest, in the remotest possibility where there's no road or electricity, even there he gets to vote, okay? It's a big thing. Anyway, what is the possibility? The next 5 years, will be scintillating for India, probably 10 years. So, big changes are going to happen for sure, because what has been lacking for India is, an Indian has never been the leader of the country. When I say this, I'm saying our education systems in India have been such, once we get English educated, our brains are in Greenwich Mean Time. Yes. So, there has not been a leadership who understands people the way they are. Somebody who will not ask Indian people to fit into another format which is not theirs. They made ordinary people feel ashamed just because they don't know how to speak English. They can speak their mother tongues fluently, but people are ashamed that they can't speak English. When you… see, nation is just an idea, let's understand this. It's not some God-given thing, it's just an idea. If you invest certain passion in this idea, nation becomes strong. When you're ashamed of being who you are, how will there be passion about it? For the first time, we are having a leadership which is passionate about who we are, okay? This is very important. This is over a 10,000–12,000-year-old culture which is so complex that you cannot put it into simple logical analysis that you normally put other societies into, because it is too complex and it's too multi-dimensional, multi-ethnical, everything multi, okay? It needs a very organic leadership, not a synthetic leadership which drops there because somebody is somebody's son or daughter, okay? That's what has happened in the last 30 years.
Next question.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm wondering of other ways that you would suggest of turning that and walking the 4 miles instead of the 24,000 miles. You mentioned perhaps finding a guru was one way, so that was one question. And also, how does one find a guru here in the United States? Thank you.
Now, you must understand the basic human predicament. All that you experience, light and darkness, pain and pleasure, agony and ecstasy, whatever, everything that you experience happens within you. Is that so? Do you see me right now? Do you see me right now? Where am I? Use your hands and point out. Ah, you got me all wrong. You know, I'm a mystic. Now this light is falling upon me, reflecting, going through your lenses, inverted image in the retina. Where do you see me now? Within yourself. Where do you hear me right now? Within yourself. Where have you seen the whole world? Within yourself. Have you ever experienced anything outside of yourself? Your entire experience of life happens only within you. So what is happening within you, to make it happen the way you want it, is not something that's beyond you. It is just that right now all the 5 sense organs, the 5 faculties of perception are all outward bound. If I do this, you can hear this, but so much activity in the body, you cannot hear this. If an ant crawls upon your hand, you can feel it. So much blood flowing, you cannot feel it. In the very nature of things, sense organs are outward bound because they're instruments of survival. But the seat of your experience is within you. This is your fundamental predicament. You need a sense which can turn inward. If you have access to the basis of your experience, would you create highest level of pleasantness for yourself or misery? Definitely highest level of pleasantness, isn't it? The problem is not of intent, the problem is of access. So, do you need some guidance on this? For sure you do. So don't use the word guru, because it's supposed to be a 4-letter word in California. It has all kinds of wrong connotations.
Is it
You…
GPS?
Yeah, GPS. Right now, if you buy the GPS, you buy from the best company, yes, whichever is working well. The same thing you must do. You must ask the maximum number of people. If it's working well for all of them, you can do it too. And anyway, if you buy a GPS, you're not committed to it for life. If it works, you keep it, otherwise you throw it. Same thing with me. I'll give you something, if it works, you keep it, otherwise throw it, what's the problem? You're paying more to buy a pair of shoes. She's asking $100,000 an hour, no? I'm just asking for the costs of the hall and the microphone and the stuff, okay? Because I have produced a huge mass of slaves who are willing to work 7 days of the week, 365 days to provide this for you. Do you understand? Do not waste their lives, make it happen for yourself.
Thank you, Jim, for all these amazing conversations and for all of us, many of the people here who make CCAR possible. So, with that, I would like to ask my usual question. Sadhguruji.
Oh, why don't you shoot at him?
Oh, he always answers the same way. So, Sadhguruji, would you like a hug?
I'm sorry?
Would you like a hug?
From you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if he gets a hug, I get a hug. Now this, Alma's not here yet, okay? Alma's coming. Yes.
I have a lot more to offer than just a hug, but if that's all you want, I am okay.
Thank you.
With all due respect, I would like to say this, please.
Wait, but my hug.
The spiritual moments in the world have always, when they started as a possibility, an ultimate solution to life. But slowly, we're kind of making it like it is just for solace, for those who are in some kind of distress or discomfort, offering solace. Solace is fine when people are suffering, but for those who are standing on their feet, they need a solution. It's very, very important that you identify spiritual process as a solution, not just a means of comfort and solace. Thank you very much for being here. If I'm too abrasive for you, I'm sorry for that too.
If I'm too aggressive for you.